right, the red light is on. We are live.
Okay. All right, everybody. As they say in Bucharest, bună seara, Bucharest.
Bună seara, Bucharest.
How are you doing? Uh-oh. Did we put enough coffee out earlier, do you think?
I don't think so.
Maybe we should just skip that, go to Papa, the Uzo.
Yeah.
Should we give him another chance?
Bună seara, Bucharest.
All right, that gave Amsterdam a run for its money.
Yeah.
Welcome everybody to the 24th episode of the Moonshots Podcast. It is wonderful to be here. I am your co-host, Mike Parsons, and as always, I want you to give it up to a Bucharest first-timer, the man with a plan, the man himself, Mr. Ioan. Now, we have an action-packed show for you today. What's very exciting is that we are broadcasting ourselves across the World Wide Web to all sorts of friends and fans of the show in Minneapolis, in New York. I would love to tell you that our friends in Sydney are watching, but it is 2:24 in the morning, so we'll give them a pass. They can catch the archive. But I want to start the show today by asking for the impressions from my master blaster here, Mr. Ioan. I want to know what it's like to come to this fabulous city of Bucharest.
This is my first time in Eastern Europe, and I have to say Bucharest is unlike any other city I've been to. I think it's a good thing. It's a good thing.
He's not talking about the bad traffic. Okay, it's not about the cars.
No, I think what struck me, being an American, of course, I have a strange fascination with communism and former communist countries. I went to Berlin for the first time a few years ago and had no idea just the rich history from Berlin, both the west and the east side. And so coming here to a former Eastern Bloc country is kind of interesting for, for an American. So I'm open to any suggestions from anyone in the audience. I have 3 days here to be a tourist. So if you have any recommendations of things I should do, please let me know. And I will go and get on a train and go into the mountains I've heard are really great. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to exploring Romania.
Wonderful. And I have to say that I want to not only celebrate all the great, super smart people that I seem to run into here in Bucharest every time. I'm always having a little bit of a complex. I seem to walk into meetings, everyone has 2 degrees, did a few math Olympiads, just in their spare time. And I think it's really great to come here to Bucharest, to the Paris of the East, to come to a city that has so much to offer. We have an action-packed show that I'm really looking forward to. I think it's important to say that I do know for sure, I've just received a message from the team in Amsterdam where we did our first live show from.
Yep.
They are all beaming in. It's almost 4:30 in the afternoon there, so they probably have their Heinekens, if you know the Dutch at all.
Yeah.
And they're enjoying the show in HD on Facebook. That's great. So we've got a lot of great things here in Bucharest to be proud of and a lot of things to share with the world. So I want to make sure that this audience is ready to share their love and energy with the rest of the world. Are you up for it, Bucharest? Yeah.
So the real reason that we're here is to learn from 4 amazing innovators, entrepreneurs here in Romania. I thought I knew, all of the kind of innovation hubs of the world, but I had no idea just the amazing talent and innovations that are coming out of Romania and Bucharest in particular. So I'm really excited to learn from the guests that we have here with us today.
Right. Now, before we just give you a little highlights package of the guests, there is one important thing that I should warn you about. My friend over here, Chad, he's got like this nervous energy. He likes to jump up and he likes to walk around into the audience, and he takes with him the microphone. It happens. So we need to prepare our teammates over here. They've got to be ready for what's about to happen.
Yeah, so this is going to be interactive. Usually it's just Mike and I talking amongst ourselves on the podcast, but we actually want to know from you, the audience members, after we speak to our panelists here, what are some insights and learnings that you're taking away from what we're learning here, so that it's not just Mike and I talking the whole time. So after we interview each person, I'm going to come into the audience and ask you what your favorite learning or insight from your fellow Romanian is.
So that's right. So don't sit back and relax too much, because we'll need you, the audience, to help us. Are you guys ready to help out? All right.
Yeah, and to all of you watching us live on Facebook, please feel free to comment as well and let us know what your big learnings are from our guests.
Yes, that's right. Don't mistake this just for another microphone. This is, in fact, not only at HD, it's a 4K camera that's doing all sorts of wizardry. So this is beaming us around the world. So we got to shine the best light here on Bucharest. Beautiful evening, huh?
Absolutely wonderful. Although I heard it's supposed to snow.
You're not meant to mention that bit. But here's the thing. We have this beautiful opera house. We've got the sun setting there. We've got 4 amazing entrepreneurs, innovators to share with us all sorts of wisdom. We are also going to be doing our very best attempt at saying some somewhat tricky Romanian surnames, but we want you to cut us just a little bit of slack. We are going to do our best to not only say their names, but we also have some wonderful Romanian treats that we're also going to attempt to say in Romanian. Actually, Chad is, I think, half Romanian. He just does it because he has all these words down pat. Me, on the other hand, it's about the 5th time I've been in the city. I'm still struggling with a few of these words, but we're going to get there. And I'm really looking forward to these 4 guests. Let's give you a little bit of a taste of who's to come.
Yeah, so first up, we're going to be with Elena Cârstoiu, who's founder and COO of Hubgets, a messaging startup here. And
you know what? 2-time entrepreneur.
2-time entrepreneur, yes.
Yeah, 2-time founder, and still alive to tell the story. So imagine what we can learn from her.
Yeah. So who else do we have joining us?
Well, we have none other than Magda Ropotan, who is, shall we say, the queen of design thinking here in Romania. Look, she hates it when I give her all these compliments, but it's true. It's true.
We also have Sebastian Burduja joining us. Thank you. Managing partner of Rise, has also run for election, I've heard, studied in the States, and I think has a lot to tell us about being a well-rounded and international innovator and entrepreneur.
Absolutely. And closing out the show is the 10-year entrepreneur, the man himself, Mr. Ioan Iacob. So who's excited about our 4 guests? Okay, lots to learn. Don't forget, audience, as you're all there tweeting and Facebooking and sharing all sorts of ideas and thoughts, we'll need you in the show, so get ready. Well, I would like to welcome to the stage our first guest. Yeah. Would you all please welcome Elena
Cârstoiu.
Take a seat and get comfy. Now, before we get into the serious time founder entrepreneurial story, who's fresh off the plane from Munich?
Yeah.
From Frankfurt.
Yeah,
Okay.
We went to a trade called CloudFest.
Okay.
So with the team, of course, but the team is still there. I'm coming just for you, you know.
Wow. The expectations are building. Now, what I would like to do is we're going to need your help on the show. We, as you might see here in front of you, we have some very famous Romanian treats. And if you watch the Amsterdam show, you'll know that we went crazy for the Dutch treats. Chad had a little trouble speaking because he had so much licorice and all sorts.
The dropio.
The dropia. But we're going to ask for your recommendation because live on the show, guys, it's about to happen. Chad is going to try his first Romanian treats. Now, I have to warn you, he is vegetarian. I believe one of these maybe this one has a little bit of something in it, but you've definitely got 4 choices there.
No, it's okay. You can try any of them because they are gorgeous, you know. But I would try this one. Try this one.
Okay, what's this one called?
It's called chocolate.
Now, let me help you. Let me help you with your Romanian. We have maybe you can help us. We have negresa. Which one's the negresa?
This one.
Okay, that one's the negresa. And then we have the salam de
Biscuit.
Okay, that's the salam de biscuit.
Okay, that's the salam de. Okay.
I'm not a...
Kozanak.
This one.
Oh, that one looks. That's like dinner right there. Okay. Prăjitură cu vișin.
This one.
Which one was that one?
This one.
Oh, that looks good. And prăjitură albă ca zapada. Oh no, the wheels are falling off. This one. Oh, that one looks.
It's called Snow White.
Oh, they're all good. This is the Snow White cake. Okay, Chad, which one is taking your interest right now?
The negresa.
Gressa. Oh, okay. So he's a brownie man. All right. So let's talk about Elena. Now, what struck us so much about your history and your career was that somehow you've managed to found 2 companies back to back. Can you tell us a little bit about the journey of doing 2 startups as a founder? Are you not exhausted?
No, not at all. No, actually, I'm a co-founder. I'm not a founder, I founded the companies together with my partner, and it's been a hell of a ride. It's been an enjoyable ride, but it also is a difficult ride. So for anyone that thinks that having your own company or starting your own company, being an entrepreneur, being a founder, is something very easy and very enjoyable and doing whatever you want because you're the boss. Well, I have some pretty nasty news. It doesn't go like that.
Okay, but this is perfect because we really have this strong belief that it's great to be inspired by the stories of entrepreneurs, but it's equally important to really dig into the truth behind entrepreneurship, the real things that it takes. In fact, we really try to find practical wisdom from all the people that we study and try and decode. So tell us, what was the greatest challenge of these 2 companies that you've co-founded? And what was the single greatest challenge? And give us an insight into how you got through it, because you're alive and kicking, you're fresh off the airplane, so you're doing something
I'm
very
doing
right.
something, yeah. Well, I think that it is sometimes so.
Here we go.
Yeah, sorry. I'm not used to podcasting, sorry.
That's okay.
You're doing great.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So I would say that the most difficult part in all this journey is not give up. Because, I think there are a lot of urban myths saying that, it's nice to be a startup founder, to start companies, to do whatever you please every day, but they don't tell you how hard it is. And they don't tell you that it comes back with all those sorts of problems, daily things. And when you start with little things, when you are at the beginning, nothing can get straight from the first try. You have to try and try and try even harder until you get there. And this path of trying, even the path of innovating, because you want to speak about innovation here, it comes with hardship. Yeah. And if you do not continue, even if when it's hard, if you do not continue, even when you just give up and go away, even if you can stay there, stick to your dream, because you have a dream, right? You started the thing because you had a dream. Okay, the dream develops in time, it develops in many things. It doesn't remain in his first, inception, in its first form. It evolves together with you and your company. But if you do not follow your path, no matter how hard it is, then you cannot consider yourself a founder. You cannot consider yourself an entrepreneur. You will fail. You have to go over failures over and over again until you make it. And you don't get to let the others tell you, stop.
Right.
No, you just keep going.
So how hard did it get? Give us a sense of how close did you get to quitting? Like, how tough, how painful was it?
I think that any entrepreneur knows that you are quitting at least one time per month, but you are getting back there, you know. No, I'm joking. It's not one time per month. It's, I think, one time per year. I don't know. It depends. It depends on whatever, you know, the situations bring. But I would say that, for example, my partner and I started in 2002. And we were developing software for managing servers, Linux servers. And at some point in time, in 2005, I think, one of our biggest customer was coming to us to, discuss and see how he goes, what he needs more, just, checking the pulse. And he was very affected by the fact that he wasn't able to develop his business more. He wanted to go into communications. And back then, in 2005, there was no solution, no actual solution for small providers. He was a small provider. He was not a carrier. He was not big. He was not Google. And all the solutions that were on the market were like millions of dollars. And he was very frustrated that even if he had a big hosting company, he could not allow to go into another line of business and make more revenue because the market was closed, basically. And at that point in time, we realized that we have to do something about it. We just wanted to do it, And we started investigating a market that we were totally unfamiliar with, the communications market, that was closed. You can even call it a monopoly, There were only a couple of big companies that were selling very high prices, and it was Cisco, I don't know, Microsoft wasn't back then, so pretty big companies. And I said, okay, we can do this. I mean, we can help our existing customers going there as well, not sticking around on this market that is pretty limited. And we started to do the thing. We developed our solution, our first platform for unified communications. Back then was only voice over IP. It's transformed in time.
You were doing voice over IP in 2006?
Yes.
Wow.
And not only that, we did do voice over IP in 2006. We did the first platform in the world that was able to give the ability for service providers to offer it hosted. Back then.
It was a SaaS also. It was voice over IP and a SaaS business in 2006.
Yeah, and back then there was no such thing as cloud computing. Nobody called it cloud computing, but we offered it hosted. That was the term. They didn't have the cloud computing thing that I think appeared in 2009 or something like that. But it was the first platform in the world for that. Of course, it was too early. And people really did not understand. I mean, we've released it in 2006, and for like 1.5 years or 2 years, it was very difficult to sell it because it was completely ahead of time. Yeah. I mean, people had a very bad impression of voice IP because it was muddy. It didn't have a good reputation.
Skype was awful back then.
Skype was awful, and you know what? Skype has never been voice over IP. It's peer-to-peer.
Yeah.
But people didn't know that, and they somehow, in their back of their mind, they were making an equal between the two things, the two.
So if you were too early, which is often a common mistake entrepreneurs make, great idea, fantastic prototypes.
Great technology.
Great technology. We've heard about this a lot in the show, but then you come to the market and you realize what you see as a service, some customers don't even know that they can buy. And so then you're faced with that terrible thing. You have to educate a market. You actually have to be a market maker.
Yes.
And that can be
very
hard, very expensive. And I'm guessing this may have been a moment where you looked at your co-founder and said, you know what?
Yeah, well, we were very lucky to have another line of business because otherwise, I'm not sure exactly how it could have been. The software that we were making for the server market kept us going. So we had the streams of revenue from there.
Sure. But tell us, when you're faced with this huge challenge that you're guaranteed to face whenever you try and do something bold, and ambitious, whenever you try and start a company, you are for sure going to face these moments. The valley of darkness is what it's called. How did you get through? What was the thing that got you through to the other side? Like emotionally, for you, like what could you go back to regroup, to rebuild, and to just wake up and then get back on the bike?
Well, there are two things. First, it is that, that first idea that gets you started. In our case, it was the idea that people were prohibited, basically, by the pricing to communicate better. Even between in our own company, there was a problem, We had a communication problem, and we couldn't solve it because we didn't have the means. So we built the means to communicate better. And we have never built products for end users. We always build products for companies, business to business. So we always, had that image, even from our own company, of what we need to build, what we need to do, to make even our own life better. So have this, very strong, very passionate, very, I don't know how to call it, very strong conviction, and mission that we need to do something. And if we do it for ourselves, let's do it for everybody, Let's make it happen for everybody.
Yeah, and this is something that we've found across many of the other innovators we've profiled, is they start with a problem that they themselves
of course. You always start with a problem. You know? Don't go from, I want to be an innovator. Pick me, I want to be an innovator. No, you don't do that. That's only in, I don't know, in San Francisco movies or Hollywood movies made about San Francisco. No, Silicon Valley, It doesn't go like that. It's, I have a problem. I have an idea of how I can fix it for myself. Then I see I can fix it for everybody, or for not everybody, but I don't know, most people. And then I start doing my thing. I start implementing my thing. I change it like 1,000 times. I change it again and again and again. That's called innovation. Okay?
And at Hubgets, is it still changing, or in perpetual change?
Of course. And you get a moment when you're lucky. That was the second thing, because I said two things. The crisis came. And when the crisis came, everybody
You're talking about 2008, Lehman Brothers?
Yeah, that one, which was awful for everybody in all places in the world. And our customers were all over the world. So they had to try to reduce their costs. And our product was, compared to other products, was like an infinity less, from the price perspective. So they started to give it a try. They started to give it a try to voice over IP, which was, reducing costs not from the software perspective only, but also from the communications perspective as well. So they started to use it. And the user base, I think, grew 100 times a year.
Wow. In 2008, 2009, right after the crisis?
Yeah, I think it began at the end of 2008, and it had 3-digit growth for like 2 or 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you, do you think the sticking with it and the not giving up, like being resilient, do you think in a way that earned you that good fortune and that luck? I mean, the fact that you survived.
Not my resilience was all about the crisis, but no. I think that things somehow connect, Not giving up gives you some opportunities. You take the opportunities, you see beyond the line, you see beyond the, you are speaking here about innovation. The definition of innovation in two ways. You can be an innovator by building completely new products or new technologies, right, that no one has built before. And this is a very expensive innovation because it, or you can take existing things, existing technology, and combine them in different ways and create a completely different product, but with existing things. If you know Mark Andreessen.
Hey, we did a show on Mark.
Okay, Mark Andreessen point in time remember from his Netscape days.
Yeah.
What his Netscape CEO said at some point. There are only two ways of making money: bundling and unbundling. And what he meant was actually that you either do a thing from the beginning from scratch and that's it, that's a new product, or you take existing products or existing things, you combine them in different way, and here you go, you have a different product, new product, nobody has done it before.
I love it.
And you know, I think there is a very, very clear example with that. Everybody knows Alexa, right? So that's the perfect example about this thing. You know, voice recognition is on the market for many, many years. It wasn't that good in the beginning. It started to get better at some point in time. The hardware improved again because you need a lot of hardware computational power to be able to do voice recognition. Siri came out, right? We all had Siri. It's annoying. I have it closed because it drives me nuts. But what Amazon did, they took the voice recognition and they put it in a speaker. Nobody did that, okay? Yeah. Nobody did that. They took the risk because actually, yeah, that's another thing about innovation. You have to take risks.
Yes.
When you are doing something new, whatever you do, it doesn't matter how you do it, if it's new completely or you bundle it.
Bundling or unbundling, it's all going to have risk involved.
Exactly, exactly. So innovators take risks, and if they take risks, they will eventually win.
And stick with it.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah. Yep.
Now, what's really interesting for the audience to know is that Elena has quite a lot of, shall we say, a deep practice in really working on the internal operations, the efficiency, and the people within your team.
Yes.
And so we would love to hear some of your thoughts on, as you go on a journey before the 2008 crisis, through the crisis, and then after, through two different companies, you must see an enormous amount about how people work and what it takes to build a team to finally succeed at the end of that journey. What advice would you have for anyone here in the audience or any of the viewers online today? What advice would you have for them about how to build teams, and what does it take, what does it really take to build great culture and to bring people together?
Well, I think the most important thing, I mean, there are hundreds of things. I can go on here like for hours.
Shall we extend the show?
No, you don't want to hear my sexy voice that much. It's okay. No, I'm just joking. No, I think the most important thing is communication. Communication with the team members, because without having, right now everybody talks about collaboration. Everybody's, Slack, everybody on the internet, everybody's talking how collaboration is great, but they forget something. You cannot collaborate with other people without communicating with them. So communication is actually collaboration. The collaboration is the result of the communication process. So if you don't do the communication process well, if you don't do it efficiently, if you are not productive in your communication, if you don't find out information, if you don't spare that information, if you don't store it right, so you can find it at any time, any moment in time, then you will have a problem later on with your own people. So I think that the most important thing in a culture, even in a company culture, is its communication ability and its productivity in terms of communication, and at the end of the day, it will be the productivity of the team.
What kind of practices have you seen work inside of Hubgets to foster good communication?
Well, this is how we actually built Hubgets, because having this experience in voice over IP, and we have seen with our customers and even with ourselves that at some point in time, communication started to own us. Yeah, it's like you have a phone, it rings all the time.
Buried by email.
Yeah, you are buried in emails. You have that, I don't know how to say, I'm not sure if I can use that word, idiotic need to answer every email that you get in the zero inbox. stupid thing, actually. Yeah, and now you have smartphones and you have notifications that are popping, popping all the time. You know what I mean, right? Yeah. And at that point in time, we realized that we need to do something about it and do it smart, because otherwise the communication will own us and not the other way around. And this is how we started to build Hubgets. We wanted a product, first for ourselves and then for everybody else, that put the people first.
And what does it look like, putting the people first in communication?
Well, in our case, it meant building an artificial intelligence layer that controls the communication, meaning that it actually doesn't allow the communication to, come to disturb you. It uses some data from the communication that you do, and it makes it more streamlined, more efficient, and it doesn't disturb you.
Filtering and reducing is the first step there.
Yes. And not only that it filters and reduces it, it also, we have noticed that when people are less disturbed, they become more happy. And when they are more happy, they become more productive. We have worked on artificial intelligence layer for many years, and we have trained it with a lot of data, because, in artificial intelligence, you need a lot of data to really have, actual results, to have...
To find the patterns.
Yeah, exactly. To find patterns. You have to feed them the data, to the algorithms, have to machine learn it.
They have to go to the gym.
Exactly, you have to put them to make some push-ups, And after making a lot of you draw some lines and reach to some conclusions. And we found out some very interesting facts. I can give you some if you want. I have a couple of them from our CEO's presentation at CloudFest. It was, I will give you just two. And you tell me if you don't find them amazingly interesting.
And while you're looking that up, so the idea you're talking about is, I really like the idea that communication...
Now, let me just tell you, did you know that a happy person requires 6 to 10 interruptions in 90 minutes to get annoyed?
Say it again, how many?
6 to 10 interruptions in 90 minutes to get annoyed. Or, if you want to annoy a person, you have 4 times more chances between 4 o'clock in the afternoon and 4:45 in the afternoon.
Now, why do you think that is? Because they're on the deadline trying to get everything out for the end of the day?
Maybe that's the explanation. I only have the facts.
Ooh. Well, I know some people we could ask if we wanted to get some insights about these. So I think we're at a point, Elena, where we want to now send Chad into the audience. So you have to stay here with me, because we warned you guys, Chad does come a-wandering. And what we really want to ask of you is, what insights have you come to thanks to Elena? I certainly love this idea of survival, resilience, sticking with it. I love
the most important.
Yeah, and staying with it. And it's much harder work than what you may expect. There was plenty of other thoughts. I love this idea of, like, if you want your coworker to be happy, like, stop interrupting. I think this is really
for everybody, just do their job, and and don't, that's another hype thing, fear of missing out.
Yeah.
Okay, no fear of missing out, because you have everything there. So
yeah.
It's a balance. You always have to find a balance, even as an entrepreneur or an innovator. You always have to find the balance, the balance between taking decisions, taking risks, and getting there, no matter what.
All right, okay, Bucharest. We're sending Chad in the audience. Who has an insight? Who has a learning to share? We've just listened to Elena espousing wisdom, and I can see that the minds are moving. I don't see smoke signals yet. Who's got something that they would like to share? There's lots of bright people in the room, Chad. I reckon you could proposition one of them for an insight. This gentleman here, he's a dapper-looking gentleman. Let's see if this gentleman has a thought for us.
Your favorite insight or learning?
My name is Flavio. What I found quite interesting was on the first story, because usually a criticism that you get a lot about innovation and engineers is they are very good at creating solutions and trying to find a problem that their solution is solving. But actually, from a business standpoint, what you have done was finding a solution to an actual problem. Then, and this is the business part of it, then you have to have the right moment where the environment gets aware of the same problem.
Yeah, indeed.
So basically, you came from a small company, you had an issue with the cost and all this stuff, but you had a crisis where everybody went down and suddenly they had the same problem. Otherwise, they wouldn't have cared.
Yeah, exactly. Otherwise, for us, it would have been impossible as a small company, of course, to, educate them. We had the crisis educating them for this purpose. And you kind of use that,
Yeah, what a great constraint to help you create a market. I think that's really interesting.
But, I think that the crisis also helps in other ways. When people are in their comfort zone, they don't get to innovate very much.
Usually cold showers are good.
Yeah, exactly.
Cold showers, yes.
Why innovating when it's so nice,
Yeah.
So when you are under pressure, then you get to do things, you move faster, resolve problems,
Yeah. This is a great insight. Let's see if we can Roman. Who's into communication? Who's someone smart that maybe learned something from community? Wander down that aisle there. See if you can find some right Bucharesti people.
You look like you were paying attention.
Yeah. This guy.
Favorite innovator learning?
Communication.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is George. I'm also an entrepreneur. I'm running my company. And, I do enjoy hearing stories about not giving up. This is what I really appreciate. How much energy and how much effort is behind this. Thank you for your story.
Thank you so much.
And I encourage everyone to not give up, never. If you have a dream, just walk the path.
Yeah, very. In fact, Paul Graham in Silicon Valley he's one of the best investors. He's one of the founders of Y Combinator, and he actually says survival is success for startups. Survival is success, and in your case, the success came when there was a huge change in the market. I think that was very telling. And you stuck at it for how many years?
Well, we are on the market since 2002.
Yeah, wow.
We celebrated 16 years last month with the team. So
wow.
We had a pretty wild party. So
that's great.
It was
16
worth
years.
it.
That's a lifetime. That's incredible. Wonderful. Any last thoughts before we go to our next guest? Anyone else got some great thoughts to share? There's a very bright gentleman down here in the suit. He might have thoughts about not giving up and communication within large organizations, huh?
Yeah, thank you. My name is Aurelian. Actually, at the time when voice over IP was restricted by the operators, your idea was a bright one. And I want to congratulate you for that.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful. What a nice way to end our time with Elena. Would you all please give it up for Elena? Thank you. Wow, not giving up. That's such a big thing for me. I want to thank Elena for that because, the numbers are very telling in young companies. If you look at the stats, 3/4 of all the companies that receive venture capital in the US actually don't last longer than 2 years. And that gets smart money. Capitalists, smartest part of the world, 3/4 will fail. In most major cities, if you look at surveys for small to medium enterprises that start, the numbers are really, really grim. I think it's 1 in 10 in, 2 to 3 years will survive, only 1 in 10. So basically most companies die. That's what happens.
And some other numbers I've seen too show that the number of new companies being started are actually falling. I think these may just be in the United States, but people think we're in this continuing innovation, world of entrepreneurship. But if you look at the numbers, fewer companies are actually being started. So I don't know about you, Mike, but that's one of the reasons why I love doing this show and want to spread it to as many people as possible, because I want more out there and do things and start companies and plow through all of the hard times that we all face as entrepreneurs, because it needs more innovative people and products and companies.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's time to introduce our second guest. This gentleman, shall we say, he's you start looking at you ask Sebastian for a little bit of a profile, and you get the email, and it's like those emails where you just have to keep scrolling and you're scrolling. He did this and he did that. It is quite a remarkable. No. Even if half of it was lies, it's still great. This is somebody who's worked for some small startups. One's called the World Bank. You know, that little small startup?
Yeah, something called the United Nations.
Yeah, United Nations, small little startup. There's a very small consultancy firm. What's that called?
McKinsey.
Yeah, McKinsey might have heard of that.
Who are they?
Yeah, who are those guys? But he studied at some of the greatest universities in the world, and he is a restless young gentleman. He is very involved with connecting Romanian students who are abroad. He is participating in all sorts of non-profit and community activities, and we can't wait to introduce you, because you're so good at these Romanian names, to
Sebastian Burduja.
Come on. Okay, Sebastian.
Pleasure to be here.
Sebastian, thank you. You're very welcome. Make sure you are
Thank you very
intimate
much.
with your microphone.
Oh, yeah. Love the mic.
Love the mic. Hi. I'm Mike. Okay.
Love you too.
Thanks. Now, listen, there's so much to talk about. I think where we want to start with you is I would love you to tell us a little bit about your involvement with this student body that connects all these great Romanian students. I'd love you to tell us a little bit about what you've created there and your role in that, and just to understand what it means to be connecting all these bright young minds.
Sure. So this country had the good fortune 20 years ago and some to go from a dictatorship to somewhat of a democracy. And that has allowed us access to opportunities. It has allowed many of us to travel abroad and some of us to study abroad. And around 2008, I was in the States studying in California, not far from Silicon Valley.
Hey.
And one of my friends was going to study in the UK at King's College. And we realized that there were thousands of young men from Romania and women who would be on the same path as we were, going to study abroad, and there was nobody trying to bring them together and also reconnecting the country. And we thought, why not? Everybody said, you can't do it. You can't bring Romanians together. Romanians in the diaspora particularly,
Hang on.
myth.
Cultural insight. Okay,
Yeah.
What is it about Romanians getting together? Come on.
No, I mean, in the diaspora, they say Romanians can't, you can't put two at the same table without starting a fight. And maybe it's something from back during communism. But basically, it's said that unlike other people, the Jews, Italians, Irish,
Yeah.
It's hard to bring Romanians together. I believe we and many others have proven that myth very wrong.
Great. What does that look like when you bring everyone together? Tell us a little bit about that.
It's about helping each other out, and many of us are going into places abroad where we're far away from home, far away from family, and you're in a system different from the Romanian system. Say I landed at Stanford and I didn't know how to speak well in English, although I did, but I didn't really have the exercise of speaking in public, speaking in class, asking questions. And the Romanian education system doesn't really encourage you to ask many questions. Kind of like listen to the big boss and just take notes.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to write very well in English. I did very beautiful lessons. They weren't necessarily, what American universities consider very good.
Okay.
Hence my first grades there. I won't say what they were.
That's okay. You're amongst friends. Were there any B's?
It was a lot of B's,
Oh,
so lower
okay.
than a B minus.
There we go.
you know.
So so you've created this body. What's the name of it?
It's the LSRS, League of Romanian Students Abroad.
Okay, and so how many students are involved?
Well, now it's about 15,000 Romanians around the world. And,
Guys, come
in
on,
50
give it up
countries.
for Sebastian.
No, please. It's not me at all.
So, and this was all coming from your personal experience. You get into the sunny Bay Area,
Yeah.
stroll down, and then hang on, this is all a bit different. This is a bit hard. Maybe we should all get together and work through this.
Did you
Absolutely.
bump into any other fellow Romanians while at Stanford?
Yeah, absolutely. And there was a girl from my hometown of Piatra Neamț, for any of you interested. She was a former Olympic champion in the industry, very smart girl, much smarter than I was. And she really helped me, learn the ropes and just orient myself more quickly. It was also, though, about reconnecting Romania. Very few people know anything about this. The brain drain, a huge issue for the country. We have about 4 million, nobody knows, but 4 to 5 million Romanians who left. There's about 250,000 Romanian kids growing up today without at least one parent at home. They went to work abroad. And for the country, I think, it's not, let's not generalize, but I think a lot of very good people left. And trying to bring them back is very challenging, but also I think a requirement for if we're going to grow this country again.
Yeah. So, okay, so there's another part of this. I'd like the very same thing happened for you, because for somebody even who grew up and studied in the halls of Harvard or Stanford, the opportunity to work at the UN or the World Bank is quite remarkable. But you chose after, how long were you in the US for?
About 12 years.
Okay, so 12 years abroad, and you came home. Tell us about this.
So I guess about 2.5 years ago, I was happily employed at the World Bank, and my wife, who is American, was happily employed at the Department of Justice, and we were the very happy parents of a 6-month-old baby, our girl. And we decided to essentially leave all that and come here. And what's interesting is that very few people said, good job. Many people here said we're either nuts or I guess a few said we're opportunists, that, we're trying to come back to Romania and steal a lot of money from the people, even more than we were making at the bank or or in the States.
Wow.
That ties into my political track as well.
All right, now we want to get to that, but you gave up all of these wonderful career opportunities, what any person would die to have done just one of these.
Well, I don't know about that.
And yet you came back. Where did you find the strength to do this?
I'm more interested in like what opportunities, and speak to the fellow Romanians here. What opportunities did you see here in Romania that made you and your wife want to come back here?
Let me tell you 2 quick stories before then. I think each of us is a product of our own lives, our own experiences. And my earliest memories date back to 28 and some years ago, during a time when this city was in battle. We were people dying in the streets. And I was 5 years old back then, and I distinctly remember 2 things. One was father coming in his worker's coat with the flag on his armband, and he was crying of joy. I've never seen him cry before. I don't think I've seen him after. And he, was feeling the hope that millions of Romanians felt. And
so give us more context for the international viewers. What was going on? What was this fight?
This is while Ceausescu is still in power? Or?
Yeah, the Romanian Revolution started out as a riot in Timișoara and then spread throughout the country. We were in a small town in the northeastern part of the country. And for you to understand, maybe to illustrate with a story, I'm from a family of priests, of people who served the church, and my grandfather was a priest. And back then, it wasn't good to be a priest during communism. And so one of the things that they taught us, my parents taught us, me and my older sister in kindergarten, is the answer to the question, who do you love more, Ceausescu or God? Ceausescu was the president, the dictator, and we were taught to say Ceausescu, because if it said God, they would have an issue. Wow. As our parents. That brings me to my memory of those days, which was seeing this guy and his wife get shot, and they aired it on national TV. The trial and the execution, for those of you who remember, they happened so quickly that my parents literally didn't have time to pull us out of the room. And so I saw at 5 years old, somebody with their brains all over the ground.
Oh my God.
And so yeah, I don't think like I said, I'm a product of that experience. Yeah. And growing up in the 90s, there was a feeling of tremendous disillusionment after that, after the hope and the feeling that we could accomplish anything, that we had the freedom not just to dream big dreams, but to accomplish them. Something kept holding us back. And I think to some extent it still does. And so all my life I've chased this dream of reclaiming that hope, of help in some way. And I don't have the answer, but in some way helping people, helping the country regain that hope and unleashing the huge potential that this land has.
So let's talk about the potential of Bucharest and Romania. One of the things that really strikes me is how super bright. I seem to just run into people who have incredible educational rigor, which strikes me because I lasted at college for 7 weeks. And I often meet people with 2 degrees, rocket scientist types. But I see enormous platform of people that are eager to learn, who are curious. What are the things like, let's work on brand Romania and the innovation brand of Romania? Like, what are we working with? What are the ingredients?
I think, again, we have to generalize, but I think it's true. You have so much creativity. This people is really creative. Good and bad, by the way. So, we have some of the most creative hackers in the world, I believe. Creative artists. The Romanian movie sector is booming. We're winning prize after prize. And I think in an open competition, we're not doing badly at all. And I've seen this in the universities I've studied at. I've seen it in the institutions I've worked at. You put, generally speaking, a Romanian among very good people from around the world, they perform very well. And you see this every year. Last year, I think we had 155 medal winners at the Olympiads for various topics, math, science. And it's really in a country that hasn't invested a lot in education at all. It's the last in the EU in terms of
Okay, but how come I meet so many bright people? What's happening there?
I don't know. I think it's some of it is genetic. Some of it is just the desire that we all share in a way to make a difference, to prove to the world that people coming from this country can perform, can be very good at what they do. And you see it every, like I said, and I don't know how many people know, in every university in top 10, top 20 in the States, there's at least one math Romanian professor. It's just an example.
Wow.
And by the way, another statistic, less well known, in the EU, out of 10 fastest growing cities, 7 of them are Romanian. 7 cities.
Really?
Yeah. It's Timișoara, it's Cluj, it's Bucharest, it's Craiova, weirdly enough. It's, no offense to anybody from Oltenia, I love you guys.
Here come the tweets. Uh-oh.
It's Iași, it's Brașov, it's cities across the country that in an open competition, an open market, the EU market, they're performing quite well.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got somebody who had 12 years in the US, somebody who's brought together over 15,000 Romanian students who study abroad. We've got somebody who chose to return here, who deeply believes in the potential, to the creativity, to the innovation that lies within Romania. So I think we'd probably have a few questions and a few areas of interest if you were talking to Romanian, European, global entrepreneurs or people with an idea and maybe the ambition to start something. What advice, what sort of what's the playbook that you think? We heard a great one like just don't give up, which is great. What other advice could you give somebody sitting there dreaming to do something big, and where would you start? Like, what advice, what counsel would you give?
Do it.
Just do it.
Yeah.
No, seriously. I mean, you don't try, you're not going to succeed. And I've seen this time and again. People with very bright minds, very bright ideas that just don't have the courage to put them into practice. And you see it every day. I would also advise them that no matter what they do with their lives, they should not check out. The biggest problem in the world, certainly in Romania, I think Europe, certainly in the States, probably globally, is just people checking out of societies.
Okay. Can you tell us more about what checking out looks like? And
you see it every day. You ask people to care, to get involved, to care about their communities, to go vote, to run for office, to be leaders in their communities, to serve the public. And very few people are doing that anymore. And it's especially sad to see young people who are checked out. I don't care, nothing can be done. You know the lines. I mean, you guys know them as well as I do. And how hard it is to really get people to care again, to get them to log back in. And I think, the world is having unprecedented challenges. You talk about terrorism, migration, climate change,
inequality, wealth gap.
And we also have, probably for the first time in history, answers to all these problems. And we solve them. I know there's a famous knowledge curve. By 1945, knowledge was doubling something like every 25 years. It's doubling every, 12 days today. It will double every 12 hours by 2025, thanks to companies like you guys, AI and VR and all those things. But for some reason, we're not capable of using that knowledge to solve the problems that we face. And that's lack of leadership. It's people just not caring enough, just being content with their lives. And I think it's nothing sadder than somebody who goes through their life, makes a lot of money, and just doesn't leave a mark. Just, at the end of the road, everybody's going to die.
Yeah, you're talking about legacy, right?
Right. And you look back on that moment when you put your head on the pillow for the last time, and are you going to be able to say that you left behind more than you took away from the world? I think that's the ultimate test. And ask yourselves that question. I challenge you, and live your life with that moment in mind. I know it sounds kind of grim, but it's true. Life is finite. We know that. And the choice is ours. We live it like it is finite and we want to leave behind more than we took away, or we just sail through and be happy with our life.
So just do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And care.
So what would be a practical thing? We've got a big audience here and a big audience online. What's a couple of practical things people can start doing, start caring about? Let's help people by let's really define. You mentioned get out and vote.
Yeah.
Okay. What else can people go out and do to get re-engaged and to give one? What else can they go do?
I would say start with small things. Go out in your communities and do an event on a weekend where you pick up the garbage in the streets. Go out and plant a tree. Go out and bring your neighbors to your house and have a debate on what's going on in the world. Just put yourself out there. Go out and, by the way, try to convince somebody on the street, a stranger, to care, to re-engage, to go vote. Do this exercise. I guarantee you, it's one of the most challenging things you'll ever do.
Wow. I think
but also very fulfilling, by the way.
Yeah, I can only imagine. How did it feel when you were getting out on the streets? Because you've done it. You went out and you ran for office. You obviously were not happy with what you were seeing.
Right.
And you ran for office. How did that feel to just have to start from zero, build a constituency? And meanwhile, you've created your own company, Rise Consortium. You're busy with that. You have a daughter who I'm guessing is kindergarten and primary school right now.
Absolutely.
Where do I even begin? This is like, and you ran for office. Like, how did that feel? Were you
It's
exhausted?
the by far the most challenging but also fulfilling thing I've done in my whole life. And I did it in Namts County, which some of you might know. It's the county with the lowest average wage in the nation, the county with the most people as a percentage who left to work abroad, so they're not there. Huge issues, and very dominated by certain political forces. And I ran as an independent. Most people that I ran into in the streets, they didn't know what an independent was. They're like, I'm running as an independent. Okay, but on which party list? I said, no, as an independent. Yeah, but which party's behind you? No, I'm just myself. Oh, okay, fine, man. You know, you go on and try to.
Good luck with that.
Good luck with that, idiot. You know. And
so it was the toughest thing you've ever done?
Toughest thing, and I'll never forget this old lady. I ran into her in the streets, well, in front of her apartment building, and I said my spiel. I'm Sebastian Burduja. I'm running for office. I'm an independent, and she said, "Oh, okay. You're just trying to get a job. I understand." In Parliament, and like I said, these are real engagements, and people have to care. But it's possible. I had the best score out of all independents in the country, I can say.
Hang on, guys. Come on, give it up.
It's the volunteers.
What did you learn from the people that you talked to in that? I mean, I'm sure there's thousands of things, but
Right.
what are some things that you heard from your fellow Romanians that maybe you wouldn't know unless you got out into the streets and talked to people?
The list is so long. It's humbling to go out and meet people and understand their issues. I met an old lady who had every month she was getting a check from the government in the amount of about 47 lei. That's about $10. That was the income.
And she was going to live off that.
Yeah. I met young people who were on vacation and were working abroad, and their kids were at home, and they were missing them like crazy. And they felt hopeless for not having the opportunity to work in their hometown, in their home county. I met entrepreneurs who were being bullied by the state, and were trying to survive here in Romania. But I also learned that people want to believe that there's a chance. There's not a single individual that I met who was completely resigned, who had lost all hope. In fact, if you get beyond that initial conversation of, oh, you're just looking for a job, most people are going to say, we want this country to be good. We want the world to be a better place. By the way, if somebody's going to want to do it, maybe we'll support them. So there's hope in the world.
Wow, uplifting. Like, that's a gift after all those hard yards, introducing yourself, to walk away knowing that there is resilience, and there's a lot of good that you can believe in for the future.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's good. Now, I'm going to pick up on your theme a little bit. You know, put yourself out there. I think we should put Chad out there, don't you think? Should we sing that? Now, before Chad goes, we completely skipped a very important part of our live shows, which is we have all these fantastic Romanian treats. You've got me feeling so proud of Romania right now. We've got to get Chad eating one of these great delicacies. So, Sebastian, where would you go?
So where I'm from, we have a tradition of baking this amazing cake, which is cozonac. And I think my grandmother really does the best cozonac in the world.
Doesn't every Romanian's grandma does the best, right?
I don't know. Just saying.
The cozonac is your recommendation?
Absolutely. It's a bit messy to eat, but equally
I'll try it.
Tasty.
He'll go for it. Okay. Now, so what's next? While Chad chomps a bit, and then we'll send him into the audience. What's next for you? What are you working on? And tell us a little bit about what's next for Sebastian.
Absolutely. I'm working on all these different projects. I have many hats. But right now, I'm also building this business called Rice Consortium, and we're building the largest network of Romanian investment experts, as we call them. They're people who are around the world trying to connect global business back to Romania and local businesses from Romania to help them expand abroad. And we're having quite a bit of success with that.
So what what I note is that your political efforts, your efforts with the students, the business that you've created, all seem to come back to this idea of celebrating.
And I'm doing a PhD, by the way.
Oh my God! See, just when you thought there was nothing left that this man could do, what's the topic of study?
It's on business-to-business corruption.
Oh, geez, that's heavy. Not peer-to-peer networking.
We'll talk about it on a different show.
There we go.
We'll need a whole show for that.
Moonshots does politics. All right, Chad, have you? Look at he's still munching. Okay, so we've heard.
It's delicious.
Really?
Is there some kind of alcohol in the cake?
Shouldn't be, but
It's some kind
somebody
of sweet
spiked them up.
flavor. I'm trying to identify.
Just a warning to all the viewers. Chad does operate the video screen, so it might get a little bit wonky
it's
for all
called Moonshots for a reason, no?
Yeah, there we go. Yeah,
Shots under the
we
moonlight?
do shots.
Jello shots.
Okay, so we have lots of topics. So much for Romania to be proud about. The fact that, once again, it seems like there's a theme, resilience and the strength to keep going, and to follow your calling, I would say. That's something that we've taken. So I see a very bright lady there who was very engaged. What was your biggest insight from listening to Sebastian?
Hi, I'm Alexandra, and I totally love this story, particularly because I have friends that went to study in the UK, and the first thing they did when they got to college was to look for peers through your project, so that was completely amazing. And I personally loved the part about grit and resilience, and I find it uplifting that you can hear such topics out in the open, and I know for sure what I'm going to do next, and I have a list of friends that I'm going to bicker and annoy and get on their case about.
Good stuff.
Yeah, so what do you care about? Do you want to go out and get involved in some sort of social campaign or stuff like that? So.
Wow, that's
awesome.
Great. What's your name again?
Magda.
Come on, everyone, give it up for her. How wonderful. All right. So there's some troublemakers up the back there. Yeah, look, there you go. I knew this gentleman wanted to ask a question.
Yeah, hi, my name is Paul. I really enjoyed your speech. So there's an emotional topic you touched upon. So I'm a big fan of Romania as a brand. And I believe you're also right. The '89 revolution has never ended. And the saddest part that I do find going in the streets or talking to my friends is that young people like us do give up and think that they do not matter. And also in the recent history, there have been some moments where we did topple the current status. So we should have enough examples that push this wrong idea that we do not matter, we cannot change anything away, but still. And of course also the idea that it's been touched upon before by Elena as well. So if you're walking through hell, keep walking. That's something that I always like and I believe in, and it's nice that somebody enforces that from time to time, because I also sometimes feel like I want to give up, like, okay, quit.
We all do.
We all do, yeah. Nice.
So
thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to kick it back to you. Like, when we had a very honest discussion with Elena about when it gets tough, sometimes we do feel like giving up. When you feel really tired and you're in the valley of darkness, what do you go to like get yourself through that? How do you keep going? What's the thought? Do you have a practice?
To me, it's my daughter, and as any parent, we love her very much. And to us, what we're trying to do is also about her, about giving her the opportunity to at least say, I have the option of staying in Romania and fulfilling my dreams. I think the young generation needs that, and it's about education, it's about opportunity. I play with her a lot, just silly games, kick the balloon around.
There you go.
I sing like Elvis sometimes.
You do Elvis as well? I told you guys, this guy. Come on, stop already.
No, I do. I can do the lip.
Oh, okay. That will be at the cocktail bar after the show.
Absolutely.
That's great. What's her name?
Joanne.
Joanne. So guys, please not only show your appreciation for Sebastian, but let's give young Joanne, who hopefully is watching from home, a really big round of appreciation. Guys, please, Sebastian.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. Gee, heavy this stuff,
Yeah.
you know? None of this light Silicon Valley prototyping stuff. Poor Magda and Ioan, they're probably digging through like, let's come with some heavy stuff.
No, I'm excited to talk to them still.
Me too. By the way, can I check in on the treats? This one. This one was the
Cozonac.
Cozonac.
What kind of fruit goes in it? Nuts. Oh, nuts. Walnuts. Okay.
And raisins.
Raisins. That's what I was tasting.
Yeah. Did it beat your brownie?
I love chocolate, so it's kind of hard to beat.
Okay, so the Negresa, and the
yeah.
Cozonac.
They're good. They're both really good.
Okay, all right. We've got a couple more, so let's see what happens. This resilience thing is big today, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, we hear that a lot, though, on the show, right? A lot of people talk about not giving up. But what's interesting is no matter whether you're running for politics or starting a voiceover IP company about like 6 years too early, right? It doesn't matter what you're doing. It seems to be this theme you have.
Yeah. The fascinating thing for me, a little bit about my story, I went to school as a pre-med student, but then I was in a class, a political documentary class, and the first film we watched was Videograms of a Revolution, which by the filmmaker Harun Farooqi, which tells the story of the 1989 revolution. So this was, I don't know, 15 years ago almost when I saw this, and that and amongst all the other films kind of inspired me to become a documentary filmmaker.
Wow.
So to come here and be in Bucharest is really kind of fascinating for me. So I just wanted to thank Sebastian for sharing the story.
Yes.
Because we're almost this same age. I can only imagine what it would be like to be a young kid during that time. It's just something that we as Americans don't have any reference for, and kind of the effect that it has on your confidence to be able to think that you can go and do things and kind of rise above maybe some hardships. I wanted to say thank you for sharing that story.
Yeah. So I just want to check in with our audience. We're going on a journey of resilience, of not giving up. Are you guys still with me? Are you guys ready for our next two guests? Yeah, they're ready. They're there. All right. Our next guest is Magda Ropotan. She has traveled the globe. If you thought Sebastian was getting the air miles going, Magda is like 10x that. And the crazy thing is that she's done it at big companies, but that was not enough. So she just decided to be an entrepreneur and start her own company. She is the one and only First Lady of Design Thinking. Will you please welcome to the stage Miss Magda Ropotan? Magda, thank you for coming on the show for this live broadcast. It's fabulous to have you with us.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Chad. And good afternoon, everyone.
Hey.
It's really a pleasure to be here. And I must say, you are putting me in a situation where it's a new thing for me 3 times. First time is in a show, in a podcast. First time on a poster. Someone put me on a poster over there.
Oh, yeah. and as an astronaut.
And first time as an astronaut. So.
Yeah.
Thank you for giving me this, exciting opportunity.
This is the real moonshot experience. Okay, so I'm really fascinated to know somebody who traveled the world and had all this great corporate experience, working not only in HR, but also in innovation, with all of the opportunities. I mean, and let's be clear, we're talking about Magda was working at one of the greatest brands on the planet, IKEA, right? Yet that was not enough, and you had the courage, the foresight to jump and to create your own company. Tell us a little bit about that big step in your life.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how much of a foresight that was. I am actually a corporate product. I started to work in a corporation when I was 19, and I enjoyed it. It's been a good journey for me, and somehow I had the opportunity to work with big companies, big brands, great bosses. At some moment, after actually I had served an assignment abroad, I felt the need to go back home after being 3 years in Russia. And that was the moment when I realized that maybe it's the time to give myself a break. And I was not sure how that break would be. I just wanted to do an executive MBA. And then I would try something else. And somehow in this 2 years period of time, this thing with innovation took shape. It actually started while I was still in the corporate world. Started to be interested in that. And then when I took a break, I started to explore more the subject, travel the world also for innovation this time. And then somehow my former company heard, you know, we are interested in that. We have a project. Why don't you, come back and do it with us? And somehow this kind of gave me the first opportunity to work as a freelance consultant. And actually, that's when I met you.
Yeah, it is. We have to say, actually, I got to meet you at the beginning of this journey.
Yeah.
And we prototyped it together. We innovated. It was great, wasn't it?
Yeah.
In a very snowy February in Moscow, I have to say, wasn't it?
Yes, and you brought with you 22 people from Romania, including a fitness instructor.
That's right. Yeah, that's another story for the cocktail bar.
I'm curious, Magda. I'm sure there's a lot of people in the audience or that are watching that find themselves in a large corporation in maybe a particular role. What gave you the courage or confidence to know that you could go out and start something on your own? Because I'm sure that there's lots of other people that are maybe thinking about just going and doing it. But what was that final push for you?
I would say that after I took this project, which was basically in between, I was not really an entrepreneur at the time. I was being hired by my former employer, but as a consultant. I think the time when people started to hear about what I do, and then it went like that. Someone said to someone that I'm doing this innovation facilitation, and then someone called me and said, hey, we want you to do this with us. And then someone else heard, and then someone else heard, and then people from Romania started to hear. And then in the end, that's how it happened that I started to do mostly this. And then I realized there is a market for me. So I kind of, prototyped and experienced on the way with different projects. And I think I was lucky because it's somehow that the market embraced me, and I found a niche that needed me to facilitate innovation projects, especially for big companies. I work now. But that's how it happened. I don't have this spectacular story, that I had a strong drive to do something else. I just wanted a break. And then in this break, somehow my mind found another path.
So you created this space, and you've got yourself into the position where your clients, colleagues, and peers, and people that are fascinated in design thinking. So you've really, if we think about Elena's journey of going through this valley of darkness and having a moment where you get through, you've definitely come out on the other side. So I want you to imagine that all the people here might have a dream. But they're kind of stuck. Okay. What advice do you have for them? Sebastian wants them to go out and vote, right? I want to know, what advice would you give for someone who's maybe sitting in the tower, in a tall corporate tower, and they have a dream to do something else? What advice do you have for them?
Yeah. Just go out and prototype. Speaking about prototyping.
Fantastic.
And actually, there is a course on design thinking. I think it's one of the most popular courses at Stanford. It's called Design Your Life. And this is what it advises you. When you have this dream, just go out and try to prototype it. And prototyping a dream can mean simple things. Just go and have a conversation with someone that already does that thing that you are aspiring to, or just go out and, I don't know, if you want to open a beach bar, just go out and, get yourself 1 week working in a beach bar, see whether you like this sort of lifestyle. I think everything can be prototyped in a way. I'm a big fan of prototyping. I know you are as well. So everything can be prototyped. And before you make the big step, you can actually try and see, do I actually like it? Because it's one thing to see it from, from the eyes of the customer, seeing this very nice life, having a terrace on the beach, enjoying a cocktail. But then when you actually start running such a business, maybe you don't want to do it.
Reality sets in.
Yes.
So that's really interesting, because obviously we love to encourage people to get out there and to test their ideas, to learn with prototyping with customers. And what's really interesting is I love the idea, and we're seeing this again, is that just because you use design thinking in the office doesn't mean you can't use it.
Prototype your life. I love it.
And I want to take you guys back to a little story we heard in the Amsterdam live show. It was fascinating. One of our guests, Ioan van Mil, he wanted to move out of the city of Amsterdam, out of the center, and they wanted to move. He really wanted to move into like almost a forest. But his wife was like, "Oh, that is the crazy. I'm never leaving Amsterdam. Our friends are here, and so forth." And he's a very successful investor in Amsterdam. And do you know what he did? He said, "Well, okay, let's get 5 different Airbnbs in different neighborhoods outside of the city." And they tried it, and they now live in the forest and not in the city. Yeah. And then they prototype their life. So I love this advice for anybody who's thinking, who has a dream, like move out of the mind and like start to put it into action. Yeah.
But what if I fail? What if I don't like it?
You try another iteration, right? And actually this exercise, there is a book written about design your life. It asks you to do 3 different journeys. One journey is just about improving the things that you don't like, right? Because we all have things we don't like in our lives. Second journey is imagining that money and shame would not be a problem.
Wow.
Right? And the third journey is imagine you can't do the things that you do today. So you are asked in this design thinking exercise to create these 2 ideas, 3 different journeys, and then you can pick different things to prototype from them. And then in the end, all the pieces come together in the ideal journey that you want to have.
Design your life from the D School, huh?
Yeah, I love it.
This sounds very, very inspiring. Now, I just want to segue into inspiration, not necessarily from design thinking, but I just want to like share with the audience, you have worked in what a cocktail of locations. Apart from, obviously, you've mentioned Russia and Romania, Turkey, Serbia, Bulgaria, and Egypt. Oh my gosh, like this is like the coolest bunch of places that like anyone could have worked. I mean, here's what I want to know. What inspiration have you drawn? You must have met some amazing people, so different, with different cultural lenses. What have you taken from that journey? What do you remember? What are the defining moments of learning and inspiration that you've had from all these different countries?
Yeah, at some moment I had this, because I had a regional role, so, I was actually HR manager for 5 countries. And it was interesting that we had people on 4 continents with 4 different religions. And putting people together in an organization, in a team, in this diversity, it's actually very beautiful to witness and to be part of, but it's not so easy to build. So it takes a lot of conscious effort to really understand and respect differences of the cultures, and to really take the best out of each of us and build a culture that can function together. And I think this is the biggest learning I have taken with me, to really look into the talents and into the strengths of every single individual, beyond the culture and beyond the nationality.
So my mind boggles. How on earth do you do that? Like, what does that look like? Like, what magic recipe do you use? Like, how did you find the goodness in all those people? How did you find that like, what tactics and techniques do you use?
Yeah, it's always through we were in a large organization. Obviously, I couldn't do all by myself, but it's always by the relationships that leaders build with their own people, and the kind of conversations and the honest discussions you bring, and try to see what's the best version of the person that you could possibly have at work. And of course, you can also go on a more sophisticated path, you know, do the test, see what are people good at. But in general, it's just observing the things that people do with pleasure, the things that people find energy in doing. They never get tired of them. And then try to use more of that in a team.
Doubling down, this is actually kind of fascinating. So looking at what people are enjoying and just making sure that the environment is allowing them to do more of that, instead of telling them what to do and maybe some things that they don't enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, this is there is a big shift happening already for some years now that, you know, people started to wonder, is it actually right to keep focusing on the things that are wrong with people? Or maybe is it wiser to build on the things that people are good at? And Gallup has actually made a very extensive study on that, you know, the Gallup organization, and they have even prove that when people use their strengths at work, they are actually not only happier, but they are more productive as well. Yes. And of course, it improves retention and.
There's a fantastic book for everyone in the audience called Strengths Finder 2.0, which is actually directly related to Gallup, I understand, which is a fantastic tool you can use if you want to find your strengths, if you want to find the archetype that you are, on how to understand. And when I did Strengths Finder, it was one of the single greatest aha moments in my career. I remember it very clearly in London. I did Strengths Finder, and you fill out, you read the book, you do the extensive survey, and then in front of you is a diagnostic of who you really are and how you behave. And it is one of the most powerful, slightly humbling, oh, that's me, but it's also, oh, I see where I have strengths. And then it immediately becomes, then you start to look for things that fit that. And it seems that what you're suggesting is it's all, building great teams is all about getting as many people as possible in their area of strength. Yeah. So if somebody is leading a team, and let's try and combine your two areas of practice, okay?
Yes.
I like where this is going.
You know what I'm going to do.
Now I'm putting my HR hat,
Yeah,
right?
no, I'm putting both hats on.
Okay.
So somebody's leading a team, but they're not just like managing the status quo. We're not like paper shuffling bureaucrats. We're going to go for a big moonshot, okay? So we're going to do something innovative. We're going to get a whole team to do it. It's like skunk works here in 2018. What advice do you give for people that are perhaps embarking on such a mission? They're already at a company, small or medium company, or maybe they're a unit inside a large organization, but they have to lead that group. What advice do you have for those leaders trying to get a group of people to sail for something really big?
To build that vision of where they want to sail together with their people. I like very much a quote from IDEO, and they say, people want to change, they just don't want to be changed. They want to be given the possibility to build their own future. So, and this is something that we also do a lot when we work with innovation. We try to co-create this future together with people. And I had a great teacher in innovation. His name is Gijs van Wolfen, and he has this saying about loving others' people's children. Because nobody actually love other people's children. You'll only love your own. You may, you know, in the best scenario, like them, but you will probably not love them, right?
Yes.
So it's always great that, because innovation, especially, it's a big project, like, you know, having a child, to actually build this child together with the team.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so it's a story of empowerment and self-direction, helping them be part of writing the future rather than like, here's the future, go do it, right? That's what you're saying.
Creating the brief together and setting the goal together so that they can move together.
Yes, the mission of the project, even this future scenario that you are aiming to, I think it can be built together, because, you know, sometimes you can imagine a future. Yes, because there is this famous journalist. He said that future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. So if you just pick up the signs of today and you make this of imagination thinking, okay, if, I don't know, teleportation become mainstream, how would my business be affected, 10 years from now? Or if, I don't know, VR would be mainstream. So you can pick up a lot of these weak signals and you can actually build different scenarios. And in this exercise of building scenarios that are very, preferred maybe for your business, I think you shall always take on board your team, and because that is when they will try to build that story. I think the biggest progress of humanity was made when people chose to, make their own story better and, build another story.
Yeah. Well, that's also perfect advice, I think, for Team Romania as well, huh? Get everybody on the same page, let everyone contribute and go for it together. Well, I think that is a perfect segue to distributing the future of Chad, but the future of Chad with a Romanian delicacy. Magda, we've had the Cozonac, we've had the Negresa. So what should be the next fine tasting treat for young Chad Ioan?
Oh, I think you shall try this prăjitură cu
Okay, which one's that? You have to point.
Yes.
This one? Okay. One. And this is a sour cherries cake. So as Chad is consuming his sour cherries cake, he is going to grab his mic and he's going to jump into the audience. Now, I have to say you should be very inspired by these three Romanian entrepreneurs and innovators. They've made a calling to Team Romania. So this time, we're going to look for a hand, a raising of the hand from the audience, someone who has a learning or an insight that they want to share. There's a gentleman in a green jacket. He's almost, there it is. Here it comes. There it is. Very good.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Magda. What I take away from your presentation, and I really loved it, is the idea, the very simple idea, as all truths are, that you can prototype your life. And I loved it very much because probably it's an invitation to take ourselves less serious and be more courageous in trying things before doing the that huge step, definitive step that scares the hell out of many people. So just trying and prototyping is the way forward, and this is what I take away from this speech. Thank you very much again.
That's great. That's great. Is there anybody else who has an insight to share? The man who is full of cherry cake is ready to bring the mic to you. He's very good at locating very intelligent ladies in the row 3 from the side.
Yes. Thank you. Mihaela is my name. Thank you, Magda, for today's speech. I myself was particularly inspired by this prototype your life, and especially because of the power of an insight. And this insight is, you don't have to make too big a jump. You don't have to think too big a solution, but small steps, like for instance, talk to someone. Like for instance, grab some insights around you. And I think this gives a lot of courage to people that who do not know how to begin with their dream. And I think this is really, really inspiring. Start small, because it's still a start, and it might be more powerful than the biggest jump that you'd expect. And thank you.
All right. Well said. Okay, everybody, please give it up for Mrs. Magda Ropotan. So I'm just doing a quick recap before we get our last and final guest on. And it's getting really hot and steamy in here. I mean, we're talking about resilience, not giving up. Oh my gosh, prototyping your life. Just do it. All right? I feel like we're in a Nike ad here. It's getting pretty intense. Everyone's wanting to prototype. I think we're going to have a frenzy of prototyping while we drink cocktails.
Yeah.
Okay. But we've got one more guest.
Last but not least.
I agree. And this guy, he's been on a journey, right?
Yeah. So started a company, just himself. And over the course of 10 years, well, not quite just himself, started a company and grew it over 10 years to over almost 200 people. I have a company, but I've just stayed myself for 10 years. I haven't grown it to 200 people, so I'm really excited to learn about starting and growing a company from none other than QUALITANCE's Ioan, Iacob.
Come on, guys, give it up for Ioan. Okay, so we have a little bit of, in Silicon Valley, we talk about like founding stories, and every startup's got like a founding story. I was walking along the street, or I was at the airport, or my small company saw that my client needed this thing. But we have some QUALITANCE mythology. We just need to kind of clear up a little bit. And the thing I'm a little not clear on is QUALITANCE, where exactly QUALITANCE was started. I've heard different versions of this story. It was in an apartment. It was in the lounge room of the apartment, or it was in the bedroom of the apartment. For some reason yesterday, I think I even may have heard someone said it started in the bathroom of the apartment. I'm a little. So do you think you could start by like, where did this crazy dream when you started this 10 years, where did it actually start?
In a parking lot, in a car.
Ah, you're totally wrong.
I haven't even heard this.
So no, actually, I was in a parking lot in a car with Radu, co-founder and friend for what, 25 years?
Yeah, okay, where is he? Radu, can you stand up? Because I can't see you when you wave your hand. Come on, guys, give it up for Radu.
So, and there was this whole thing, this entire buzz about technology and things that are happening. And we didn't really have a clear idea. I mean, if I would talk to myself 10 years ago, I would probably just smack myself over the head and it's like, get your shit together, dude. Like, come on, like you have really no clear idea what you want to do, because we're like, yeah, like technology is changing the world and we want to be part of that. Let's start a company. So that was pretty much the level of maturity that we had, and then it showed because so I left my my job at Adobe at the time, and well, we did the website and we had no clients, and we're like, where's the clients? There's nobody calling. Like, we have our phone up on the website.
So you and Ryder, you're just sitting there watching the monitor, like, with the inbox?
No, actually, we were working on we're continuously improving the website because there was nothing else to do. And
you didn't call any prospective customers. You just built the website and thought they would come.
We built the website like we're famous. Like, why wouldn't people call us? You know? So and then so this was all happening in Radu's RC's office at the university, and we said, no, we gotta take lead on this. We gotta do something. So we started hacking it, and basically I was going to interviews, and then when people were like, yeah, you're hired, I was like, yeah, well, you know, it's not really me. It's a company. I'm going to be a consultant for you. People are like, get the fuck out of here. Right? So, except IBM. Except IBM, who was like, well, okay, we really liked you, so we're going to find some way to work. And this was surprising because, you know, IBM has had this image, at least in our heads, like this big, intangible, giant mogul.
So hang on. We got two guys and a website, and you convinced as your first client IBM to get on board.
Well, it didn't really convince the client to get on board. They really wanted to hire me.
Okay.
So, and we said, yeah, but you know, I'm working for this company, so I'm gonna be, you know, outsourced to you by this company.
Okay.
And they were like, nah, you know, that's complicated procurement, like procurement. Like if you wanna get it done, you get it done. You know, it's complicated. There's this whole procurement. Well, it can be complicated. You take a contract and you sign on it. It's not that complicated. My God, the kid doesn't understand. So I would say the sheer power of not really understanding what's happening was what got us through.
Right now, so you bumbled through it.
Pretty much.
Now, fast forward 10 years later, we're sitting here in these beautiful offices looking over the Opera House of Bucharest. You know, have you had much time to reflect and just think to yourself, this all started not even in an apartment, in the parking lot. I'm glad I cleared that up, but it did start in the parking lot, and now look at where you find yourself. Working with clients both here and abroad with all of this stuff. Like, what do you think about? Like, what thoughts go through your mind when you're like, wow, this is crazy?
probably the first thing is that I have so much more to learn, because when we started this, as I said, the sheer power of incompetence was like, yeah, it's simple. You just start a business, you get business, you do business, like you get a lot of clients and things just happen. And it's definitely not that simple, right? But just that underestimation was, and kind of optimism was what got us through. And looking at myself from 10 years ago, I realized I learned a lot of things. And I learned a lot of things that I wasn't expecting I should learn or could learn or need to learn. And I'm pretty much wondering what's coming next. What am I going to learn next, and what's going to be my next learning? So that's pretty exciting. And
so, I'm curious how you and Radu knew that you needed to build a team, and how you went about building a team. Because I know there's probably a lot of people here that have started a company just themselves or with a co-founder, but maybe they're at the stage of like, okay, we kind of we have a website, we kind of have this thing that maybe works, and then they don't know when to take that next step and really build out the team. I'm kind of curious what that was like for you and in the first couple of years at QUALITANCE.
So yeah, the interesting thing is we always had this idea that we want to do something that's really outstanding, that's really extraordinary. So we took pretty much all of our savings, like literally all of our savings, and then our C mortgaged his house in order to get some money. Yeah, and his apartment, and then we got like some loans from my parents, and we really decorated this. Well, we set up this really nice office, and everybody was like, "You guys are complete idiots. You should just have a shitty office for now, and then you know, as you get more business." But we had this idea, like, how can we get business if we have a shitty office? And it's true. Like one of our first employees, who's Ina, she started working in reception, and she's now a director of operations. And Ina came in for an interview, and like, it looked so corporate, it looked so cool, like everything looked very much in place. Like I was convinced this is a huge office, there's some stuff behind those two doors, and behind those two doors that were leading out of the main room was just another room and a kitchen, so it wasn't really much. But we really branded this thing, and then we started getting a team together.
How did you know to get the team together? Like how did you shift from that? Okay, we've gone from the website to the nice office. How did you start doubling down? Like, how are you able to do that? Like, we're going to hire some people. That must have felt like a huge move at the time.
It did. It really did. And we did all the possible mistakes that we could possibly do. But I think there was this one thing, and actually, speaking of resilience, and you know, in 2007 when we started QUALITANCE, there were really no investment mechanisms. You couldn't get, you know, investors and seed money and angel investors, and nobody would put any sort of money into that. So being very much restricted about, yeah, we didn't have a lot of room for error, right? So what happened was that we actually had to find a way to really get people that were good, and we couldn't afford sticking with people that were not right for too long. Like we really could not afford it. We didn't have the money for that.
So it was so fragile. Survival was, in those early years,
Yeah.
it was such a fine line. But it was almost like this constraint forced you, well, we're going to need an A team, right?
Yeah.
We're going to have to like really get the best people because we're traveling close to the edge.
Pretty much, yeah, exactly. And then I think this kind of stayed within the company because it just has this culture of resilience and being very careful about resources and managing things in general. So I think that was actually a very something that really made us stronger and created a nugget of culture that was super helpful later on.
Yeah, aside from a kind of fake fancy office at the beginning, what kinds of things did you do to get your first big clients? Because I'm sure it was pretty much you get a new client and then maybe you can hire someone because you get the first invoice that's paid and then you're like, okay, now I can add someone to the payroll. What kinds of activities and techniques did you have, both you and RC, like in finding those first new clients?
For the first years, it was very much about taking care of. For the first year, it was very much about taking care of the core business, which was pretty much outsourcing back then, and then in 2011, 2012, we met Ropotan, and we told him about how excited we are about technology and our vision of the future and how technology, it's changing the world and we want to build that. And I said, well, what better place to do that than Silicon Valley? I was like, yeah, you're right. So why are you not in Silicon Valley? I'm like, how can we be in Silicon Valley? I said, I don't know, come to my place and, I'm 20 miles away from Silicon Valley and you can see. So that's what we did.
Hang on,
really...
so you meet Radu Cordes, who says, if you want to be serious about tech, you got to be in the Valley.
Yeah.
And he convinced you to go.
Well, he offered me, he said, you can stay at my place for a bit. and everything else you need to sort out yourself.
And now, what were you and Radu thinking at the time? Were you like, just go for a week or two? I don't know, like, just give us a sense of what that moment was. You've got on the plane, you've got this long flight, like, what are you thinking? Like, is it just a holiday, or were you like, we are going to do this? Like, help us understand.
It was always, of course, we are going to do this, but kind of the same manifestation of complete ignorance, because I had no idea how are we going to do this. We're just like, yeah, we're going. I don't know.
But nonetheless, you went out there, you went to Silicon Valley. When did you know from that journey that something was starting to click for the company? When did you know that going beyond just thinking of yourselves only here in Bucharest, but thinking of yourselves in such a big way? Like, when did you know you'd finally done that? Because business now is more than half of the business the company does is international.
Yeah.
But when was the first time you were like, you had the validation of, hey, this is something?
So, first of all, the first 2 weeks were horrible. And I was just getting no business and like 0 leads. It was terrible. So I'm talking to Radu Cordes, and he's like, okay, so how's it going? I was like, horrible. I said, that doesn't make any sense, because you guys, you're programming for software development, and the Valley needs a lot of software development. How can you not be selling? It's like not being able to sell water in the desert. Like, how are you not selling software development in the Valley? So I don't know, man. It's not working. He said, okay, so let's role play. So how do you, when you meet someone, what do you do? Like, I tell him about my company, and so how do you do it? I was like, what do you mean? How do I do it? I said, hi, I'm Radu, and hi, I'm Ioan. So Ioan, what do you do? And I was doing exactly this. We have a company, and I said, what is this lame shit? Like, you got to clean up your act, man. You can't do this. This is horrible. Of course, nobody wants to give you any business. You're not inspiring any sort of trust. Like, how am I supposed to do it? And to make a small parenthesis here. So it's this entire Romanian culture of, you have to be humble, have to be very humble. You can't boast. Like, other people need to discover your value. You can't be upfront about what you know to do. And this was the kind of narrative that I was playing to. And I found out very soon that that's just not working.
Okay, so fast forward, you're working today with a large organization, with offices around the world, with large clients, with the coolest of startups in San Francisco.
Building really cool tech.
Yes, plenty of news to come there. But how did you muster the courage? How did you muster the resilience to expose yourself? Because let's be honest, guys, if you're like, can you imagine going all the way to Silicon Valley from Bucharest, having weeks of bad introductions and still getting up in the morning and go, like, how did you do that as an individual? What internal energizer battery, what fuel did you look for? What got you across the line to be resilient, to stick to it, to just do it?
And how many no's were there before you got your first yes? And I'm curious who your first yes was.
So our first yes was Rob Nivert, who's actually right now, he's also an advisor and he's a venture partner at 500 Startups. He was the CEO of a company back then, but before Rob, I think there were maybe 100 no's. Like literally 100 no's.
So who here, let's be honest, who here, if you'd got to like 50 or 60 no's, you might have like, you know what, I might not take any more meetings, I'll just go do some sightseeing. I think you're right. You would probably like, don't think this is gonna work. Tell us, like, what's the secret, man? How did you keep going?
So there's two things. First of all, I was trying to learn from everything. I was like, okay, so this one I fucked up, but what did I do right? What did I do wrong? And I was kind of thinking about it in these terms. And I was trying to analyze. And, you know, I had the feeling that each one was getting a bit better. Like the initial one where like people didn't want to talk to me. And then the other ones, you're like, yeah, you're kind of nice, but no. Okay. So that was a good progression. So it wasn't like, no. You know, there's this saying that quitters never win and winners never quit, but those who never win and never quit are complete idiots.
That was intense.
Yeah, so I didn't want something in order to get to that win, right? So...
but how, I'm not going to let you off this one, Ioan. Yeah. How did you do it? Like, how did you stick with it? Tell me, you wake up in the morning, you're like, oh man, I met yesterday, that was what, the 98th rejection. Yeah, cool, I'm going to go to that next sales meeting. Like, how do you do that?
I just don't think in those terms. I just don't think about failures like that. They don't bring me down. I don't know, maybe I have some sort of disease, but I literally don't think like that about things that fail. I was like, sure, I'm pissed for a bit, but I'm like, okay, let's get to the next one. And it's this feeling that, you know, the story of the guys that were getting off the boats when conquering a new land and then they were burning the boats. That's kind of what I used to do to and I still do to myself, because I don't want to look back. I don't want to look for a backup plan, because any time that you spend looking for a backup plan is time that you don't put into finding a solution and finding the win. And I believe that, you know, in any conditions you can get a win. You just need to find out how. And all your energy should go in that direction, into finding the win, not in lamenting about what went bad, and not into you know, finding the backup plan.
Don't sort of brew and sit in the past and get stuck in, which is a theme that we've heard a lot of. You know, Fred Smith from FedEx was very like, you learn and you move on.
Yeah, and what's at the end of the day, what's the worst thing that can happen? Like, seriously, what's the worst thing that could happen? Like, I get a lot of rejections. Well, we still had a good business back home, and you know, it's not like, I think people just overemphasize this fear, and for me, it's very much, you know, it's not about. And somebody told me this, and I was convinced until very recently that I'm a huge risk taker. And actually not. I'm not a huge risk taker. I'm like the most risk adverse. I'm like a granny. Right? No, seriously, I'm not a risk. I mean, RC is the risk taker between the two of us. I'm the granny, but I mask it very well because I look at it in very mathematical sort of terms, right? And it's this idea that, well, if you do something and then, okay, it doesn't work out, and the next iteration you improve that with 5%, right? By the time you've tried that, you know, 100 times, 200 times, you've massively improved like the initial thing. So it's a mathematical thing. It's not about beliefs and it's not about emotions. It's just a pure mathematical thing. It's improving. It's gonna get there somehow. You don't know how, but it will get there.
Well, and I'm sure that's the same math that Elena was doing. Just keep going, right? Yeah. It's that resilience. I just have visions of Sebastian walking in the streets of these Romanian neighborhoods, and he just keeps going. Right?
Yeah, and it's keeping going, and like literally.
And Chad will just keep going, as long as they don't bump the table too much, right?
So, but it's also very much about not just keeping on going and doing the same thing over and over again. I think it's about modifying something, doing something different.
Test and learn.
Test and learn.
Yeah,
It's continuous test and learn. And I loved Magda's comment about prototype your life. I think, yeah, this is basically what you need to do all the time.
Yeah.
Just test and learn and test and learn.
Yeah, particularly when the goalpost moves so much. Like the game is changing so much. What an assumption from, say, 5 years ago could be totally redundant now.
Yeah, and one interesting thing too, you calling yourself not a risk taker, it kind of makes sense now because, as you said, you had the business here in Romania that was kind of doing its thing, and you could get told no forever, and you could still have your customers here in Romania that were working. And Elena, it sounded like you had your server business that allowed you and gave you that steady revenue to, to keep trying and failing at the beginning. And that's interesting to me too, to have that a little bit of that stability to then branch out and take the risk so that you can be told no and
Absolutely.
so that you can fail.
But even like think about it further. Let's say the business in Romania would have failed. Well, I still was an engineer and a pretty fucking good one, so I would have gotten a job anywhere. So it's you really gotta understand always your in negotiations they call it BATNA, best alternative to negotiated agreement. Let's call it BATW, best alternative to winning, right? Well, what's the best alternative to winning? Well, we have the business in Bucharest. Well, what if that fails? Well, I'm going to be an engineer. Well, what if I can't be an engineer? Well, I'll figure something out. Like, how bad can it be?
Yeah,
seriously.
The other insight that's interesting is the failing is not as bad as you think it is. Your imagination is always worse, but.
And we have all these amazing stories, and Professor Don Cottis here is one of these. So if you want to take about people who really did something that looks a lot more like risks, well, you can ask Professor Don Cottis because he went to the U.S. Him and his wife, they just landed there. They had no job, no contacts, no friends. It was just them there, and didn't know a lot of English. Had practiced English, by himself, reading books and all that. And then 6 days later, he got a job. And then 3 months later, that company got bust and fired everyone. And then pretty much the same day that the company got bust, he found another job. It's just not falling into the trap of despair and going, oh my God, this is so terrible. That serves literally nothing.
One last question before we unleash some more Romanian treats, not only on Chad but the audience, and some wine and beer and some snacks. I want you to imagine that there are young men and women out there who are in the parking lot dream, right? That they want to start a company, they want to do something and make a difference in the world. With all the benefit of this hindsight, what advice do you have for those young people that are looking to go out and make their dreams come true, to have impact on the world? What's your advice?
It's really keeping a North Star. For us, it was this thing that we want to use technology to change the world, and we want to be the people who are changing the world through technology. This was our North Star. So just keep a North Star, but then be very flexible about what's going to take you there. Because the truth is, any plan that you have initially that's not going to be it by the end of the journey. It's not going to be it. So just try and get around it somehow. Just iterate. Just be agile, but keep the focus in mind.
Have a North Star.
Yeah.
Keep the vision and keep the mission alive. That's good advice. Now, completely lost on all our Romanian treats here before we send you out for our last round of insights. I think it's down to a choice of two. Do you remember which two treats? Where are we at?
I want to try this one. You can try this one.
Okay, this would be the
Prăjitura albă ca zăpada.
Woo! Did you check that out? Has he earned his Snow White cake? Yeah, okay. All right. Now, so we have heard some amazing topics from Ioan. Resilience, having a North Star. risk is not what it seems. I mean, these are perfect thoughts for anyone wishing to go out and do something amazing in the world, something 10 times better than what's on offer today. So whether you're at a big company, a little company, whether you have a dream to do something for yourself, if you want to design your life, there's been lots to learn. Oh my gosh, he's taken the treats, watch out. So, because you know that fine wine and beer and all sorts of Romanian treats are just around the corner, I'm sure we have lots of eager insight providers. I'm looking around. Yes, the professor.
Hi. I'm good friends with his parents, and Ioan.
Did he pay back? Did he pay back the IOU?
Ioan forgot to tell you that when he started the company, they were happy that he was a well-paid engineer at Adobe, and for 6 months he didn't tell them that he resigned.
Is this true?
So when I explained to them how well QUALITANCE is doing and how extraordinary projects are there, shaking their heads, and he's going to do something crazy again.
Well, it was, you know, my parents, of course, and this is a parent's job. They need to worry. I would be worried about my kids. So I was like, why put this burden on them? Like, it's my thing. It's my burden. I shouldn't burden them. I will tell them when the company is successful.
Mm-hmm.
So when the company is successful, I will tell them. And there were a lot of awkward dinners, and you know, so how's the staff at Adobe? It's like, well, great, I guess. I mean, the company's going great, and they're just veering off.
I'm working on lots of things.
I didn't even know. Well, yeah, Adobe, great. Yeah, but how about pass me the butter, please?
All right. What other insights do we have to share? What about? Well, yeah, actually, see this young gentleman over here. He's a bright engineer type, actually.
Hi, I'm Sherban, and I think I will talk back tonight the idea that we as Romanian are not used to show off and to show the world what we know and how smart we are. And I see this a lot in interviews. I ask the guys that are coming to work with us, what did you do and you are very proud of? And most of the time they have no idea what and how many things they know. I need to work with them to find out. Yeah.
So they can do a lot more to be proud of the good things that they've done in the world, right? And the contributions that they've made. Well, I think we've got lots of tips and suggestions from our guests. I want to go for one more. I feel that I can see there's a young gentleman and a lady. Third row. Go third row. Third row. I'm feeling third row for some. Fourth row. Yep. Yeah. There we go.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Denisa. First of all, I want to thank you for inviting us here and for sharing from your great experience.
Thank you for coming.
And an idea that I appreciate that Ioan pointed out, I think, in the beginning, that in order to do something really outstanding, you don't need to see the entire picture from the beginning. You just have to take the courage, to have the courage to jump in and step by step to follow one purpose. And
like Sebastian said, just do it.
Yeah. And analyze everything, learn from each step, from each opportunity, from each threaten, and just go in and follow your purpose, to have a straight purpose where you want to go. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have heard about resilience, fortitude. I really love the idea that risk is not what it seems. I think that's great because I think, to Sebastian's point, I think a lot of people are sitting on dreams, but they never put them into action. And people can go out and test and learn. And whether it's 1 or 100 failed meetings, what was really inspiring is at the end of it, you actually made a partnership and an agreement with somebody who's gone on to be a managing partner of one of the leading incubators in the world, 500 startups. and who's gone on to be an advisor of your company. And I think that's a great testimony to resilience and to like getting out there and just doing it. Would you all please thank Mr. Ioan Iacob? Woo! Wow, we got a lot to decompress on. Oh my gosh. Definitely a theme of resilience, toughness, and just doing it. It's like a good Nike ad, isn't it?
Yeah, I wanted to mention to everyone, we're going to take everyone's interviews and turn them into a podcast. So everyone, please go to moonshots.io, and you can find all of these amazing interviews and insights from you, the audience members. Mike and I will, I think, do a little bit of summarization and decompression for each, because we want to get to the food and drinks here shortly. But I just wanted to remind everyone to please check out the podcast episodes that will come from each of our interviews here.
Yep. Ladies and gentlemen, we really do want to thank you for being part of the show. This is our second live broadcast. And Bucharest, you've done yourselves proud tonight. You have inspired us to be strong, to reimagine that risk is not what it seems, and to go out there, just do it. To walk the streets, to vote, maybe to try and win some votes, you know, to tough it out until Lehman Brothers and keep going, to go out there and to design our lives and to reimagine that life and business is more than just in one place, and to travel the world and to build something truly amazing. A moonshot indeed. So I would like to thank you, Chad. Thank you. Yeah. We have plenty more Bucharest ahead for you. Yeah. And how are the treats?
Oh, the treats are amazing. I'm going to finish by practicing some Romanian, so
let it rip.
Mulțumesc, Bucharest.
There you have it, folks. That's it from us at the Moonshots Podcast. There's plenty of wine, food, and drink. We're going to play some tunes here. You are very welcome to stay around to chat, to connect, and to enjoy this inspiring and uplifting moment and evening in Bucharest. Everyone, thank you very much, and we'll see you again. Bye-bye.